In the early days of the red pill and the manosphere, one of the responses that you'd often get if you talked about your experiences with women, specifically in the context of interacting with women, would be, well, you're just bitter. You're just bitter. This was meant, of course, to be an insult, and in some sense it was. And in some sense, these women who would claim that, to varying degrees, were correct. Human beings can be bitter about their experiences, and this bitterness can persist. The issue that was never addressed on the part of these women, and the issue that many people never bothered to address, was the simple fact that bitterness arises from cause and effect. They pretended that this bitterness arose from nothing. It just came into existence. There was no reason to be bitter. And I think that fundamentally was the core of the misunderstanding way back in the day. And sometimes you'll still hear this, of course. You'll hear about, you're just bitter. You're just wallowing in bitterness. Cause and effect. Life throws all kinds of curveballs your way. And over time, it's pretty easy to be bitter. Now, I wouldn't describe myself as a particularly bitter individual in general, but I'm deeply cynical, and people pick up on that rather quickly. I have a friend that I'm quite fond of, and his wife doesn't like me, specifically because of my cynicism. I've never really had a discussion with her about it, other than I just know that she doesn't like me for that reason, but I would just ask her if she ever did have this discussion with me. Look, I'm cynical because of my experiences. Had I had thoroughly positive experiences in my life, maybe I wouldn't have been as cynical. But that's just a thought experiment. That's just a hypothetical. That's just a different dimension. That's a different reality that never happened. So yeah, people can be bitter, people can be cynical, etc., etc. And the way it's sometimes addressed or talked about is if it's an on and off switch. Oh, you're bitter? Okay, just press the button and go on the off switch and all good. You're not bitter anymore, right? So I'm trying to lay out the fact that I understand that bitterness is there for a reason. And there are some experiences in life that are just really, really embittering. They're just terrible experiences. And you end up a certain way. So, yeah, people are bitter. Men are bitter. Women are bitter too. Believe me, I've met my share of very, very bitter women. But the thing I want to talk about today is not to deny that people are bitter, and not to even deny the cause and effect. You could even arguably justify some degree of bitterness, and certainly you can justify, to my mind, although I'm obviously biased, some degree of cynicism when it comes to human existence and human civilization and people. But there is a problem with bitterness, and that problem is rarely, if ever, talked about. Neither from the detractors of people in the manosphere or just people in general who criticize men who might talk about their experiences, nor from people who fully embrace the bitterness. But there is a problem with it. Do you remember that guy from New York, the short guy who went on a rant and raged a bagel shop? Allegedly, he was being made fun of, or snide comments were being directed his way. Okay, really short guy, and by really short, something like 5'3", 5'4", just short. Very short for a man. And he lost it. He totally lost it. Now here's the question. Do you think people were sympathetic to the guy or disparaging? What do you think? No, the end result of it was people making more fun of the guy than they otherwise would have. He was excoriated for what he did. He wasn't praised. Nobody said, oh man, it really sucks being really short as a guy. Because part of this comes down to the fundamental condition as a man. As men, we are not extended sympathy by and large. Certainly not in comparison to women. Women get the lion's share of the sympathy and compassion in our world. As a man, you don't. You're supposed to suck it up. Obviously, this guy has had problems in his life, especially if he's 5'3" or 5'4", that's basically, it's over for you, right? And he never geomaxed, and he was stuck in that position. Okay. And he lost it. Whatever his experiences might have been, probably most people would not think that his behavior was appropriate. He really, really did lose it, and apparently later on he lost it even more in a separate setting. Was the guy bitter? You better believe it. All that pent-up anger and frustration led to that event in the bagel shop. A lifetime of mockery, a lifetime of being made fun of, a lifetime of lack of success with women. All those experiences piled on top of each other, and he just loses it, and he attacks people. But there wasn't much sympathy. And again, this is a specific problem as a man. You're not going to be extended sympathy or compassion or understanding, on average. Certainly not compared to women. There are plenty of bitter women, but they're certainly afforded a lot more understanding than the converse in the form of the bitter man. So here's the issue, and here's the bitter pill. The bitter pill about the bitterness pill, basically. It sucks, and as I've said, I totally understand being bitter. And arguably it's justified sometimes. But the world won't give a hoot about your bitterness or how you feel about your experiences. And so projecting your bitterness outwards onto other people is almost guaranteed to be a failing strategy when you want to interact with human beings. Whatever your age, whatever your stature, whatever it might be, people will pick up on it, especially if it's extreme. Really extreme cases are obvious. I met some guy the other day who was just off the charts in terms of his bitterness, was verbally very aggressive to people, would insult them. You could just tell. That's not going to go down well with people. But even subtle hints of it, right? That is the fundamental problem. It might be justified. It's certainly understandable. But because the world is not going to accord you the understanding that is accorded to other people, i.e. women, what's really the point? Now, I'm not saying just stuff it away, or again, it's not justified. I'm just saying it's not very useful. At the very least, if an individual, specifically an individual man, feels bitter, it's probably best to limit its projection onto the outside world. Because what is the alternative? The alternative is people rejecting you. The alternative is people not accepting you. You can be bitter. You're just not allowed to show it to the outside world, and other people are not allowed to know about it. And that sucks. That is the bitter pill about the bitterness pill. Bitterness is understandable sometimes, even justifiable, but nobody cares if you're a man. And if you do want to make progress with people, and you want to develop social relationships with people, then you're going to have to swallow the pill as best as you can and not let other people know about it. I try to do this with my cynicism, sometimes at least, because cynicism, although not quite as bad as bitterness in the eyes of the many, still doesn't go down too well with most people. People don't like cynicism. They like quote-unquote positive vibes, which oftentimes is a lot of BS. Positive vibes don't always map onto reality, but nonetheless, that's what a lot of people want. And you have to adapt, and you have to roll with the punches. So if you're stuck in that position of being bitter, or even cynical, in general, it's best to stow it away. Maybe once you get to know people really well, they'll be more willing to listen to your story, and more compassionate, and more understanding. But in general, it's a bad policy. And that's unfortunately the truth about the bitter pill and the bitterness pill. Nobody wants to hear it. And if you make it a point that other people hear about it, they won't like it. They won't like you. And you end up in a similar situation to the bagel guy who totally lost it. Not without justification, probably, due to his poor treatment throughout his life. But at the end of the day, nobody cared. As always, thank you for tuning in. Please hit the like button, share, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. It really does help out the channel. Channel growth is an all-time low, as in literally all-time low in the 10 plus years I've been around, so I don't know, spread the word. It would help. And if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. May the gods watch over you. Take care. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.